How's it going, everyone? I hope you're having a great day, because today I have 3 Karen stories that I know that you will enjoy. So sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel if you're new, listen to this on Spotify if you haven't already, or if that's your preference. First link in the description, and let's just jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this first Karen story Alex. So anyways, right, Alex was, tasked to babysit his cousin, and they were at a fair. So basically, Alex and his family, they were staying with, the other part of Alex's family with his cousin. And, they all, they were hanging out for like a week together, just some quality family time. And, Alex was asked to babysit his cousin because Alex was significantly older. His cousin was like 6 or something. And he was asked to babysit him when they were going to the fair because, maybe the parents wanted to go somewhere else. Maybe, they just wanted to give Alex and his little cousin flexibility to do what they wanted to do. Alex was around 15 at the time, so he wasn't an adult, but he was definitely old enough to like have that sort of responsibility. So anyways, Alex and his little cousin, they were walking around, they were checking out rides they wanted to go on, and all of a sudden they were standing in line for one of these rides, and behind them came a Karen. And this Karen was like the quintessential Karen, and she was going on these rides by herself, which is totally fine, but the following actions are not as if, she's trying to do it for her like son or her kid or whatever. It's because she wants to go on the ride. So anyways, right, Alex and his little cousin, they're standing in line for this ride that they both really want to go on. And the Karen behind them goes like, "Excuse me, gentlemen," and they both turn around. She's like, I really want to go, I really want to go on this ride. I need to go soon. Can I cut in front of you guys? And the thing was, this line was, this was a pretty big line. So, there was, a lot of people. And, Alex and his little brother, not his little brother, his little cousin, Alex was kind of thinking to himself, no, I don't want that. Look, we've been waiting in line for a while. I just don't think I can do that. And so, Alex says, "Hey, I'm sorry, we don't have a ton of time either, but I feel like this line's going pretty quickly." And the Karen is like, "But I'm your elder and a lady. That should be double the respect, so you must allow me to pass you in line." And at this point, Alex was kind of just looking at her like, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, no." Because first of all, bro, maybe if you had a little kid and you're explaining to me, "Look, my son really wants to go on this line. We have to go, our ride is coming in 10 minutes. Can you please let us cut?" Okay, fine. But if you're just a Karen who wants to go on the ride, look, I want to go on the ride too. And my little cousin wants to go on the ride. And I just don't think I'm going to let you cut on this one. I'm sorry. I have no obligation to do that. I get it that you're older than me. I get it that you're a lady, bro. But that doesn't matter. That simply doesn't matter. And the thing is, right, the Karen supposedly took it very well. And she was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine enough." The thing is, though, right, this was not actually the reaction in her head. Apparently, the Karen was so shocked that anyone would say no to her that, all this rage and anger started to build up. It started to just, build up and fester, and she started getting angrier and angrier. And Alex and his little cousin turned, back around, right? They're not going to continue on the conversation with the Karen. It's a little awkward right now, but, they're just not going to continue on the conversation, you know what I mean? And so sure enough, right, the Karen says, "Excuse me, boys, once again." And she kind of had a tone in her voice. That kind of tone when someone says, when someone has, the tone that's, kind of a babying voice where they try and baby you, but it's also super, super condescending, where they're like, "Hello, can you turn around for a second? I just want to talk to you just one second." I don't know, a little kind of, voice like that. So Alex already knew. He already knew from this, right off the bat, that they were going to be in for some nonsense, bro. Some grade A, class A nonsense. So sure enough, Alex turns around. He's like, "Okay, what's up? What's going on here?" And, the Karen is like, "What's your two relationship? What's the deal with you two?" And Alex is like, "Oh, this is my, little cousin." I guess the Karen wanted to know if they were, siblings or friends or random people. I don't know. And the Karen is like, "Alex, I really don't think that you're doing," or she didn't say Alex because she didn't know his name. She's like, "I don't think that, you're doing a good job showing, teaching your little cousin respect. You did not do a good job at all teaching your little cousin respect. That's all I gotta say." It's not very respectful of you. He's looking up to you. He needs a good teacher, and you're honestly not a good teacher for him. I'm sorry to break it to you, but you're not teaching him respect. I asked if I could cut in front of you, and I am your elder, and you said no very rudely. And so Alex is like, quickly, he's like, hey, well, come on now. Like, I didn't say it rudely, and like, I'm sorry. We just want to be on this ride too, and the line isn't that crazy. Like, come on now, like, it's all good. Yeah, maybe Alex could have let her go in front of her. It's not like the biggest deal either way, but the Karen was making it like the biggest deal ever, and she's like, you know what? Fine, you know what? He's gonna, you know what? The Karen is just like stumbling over her words at this point, and Alex kind of just turns back around, and she says, your little cousin's gonna learn manners one way or another. I won't let him not learn it. And Alex felt that was like a really weird way to word it. Like, that was a really weird way to say, like, I'm going to make sure that your little cousin learns manners? Like, what do you mean? Like, we'll never see each other again. Alex, at that point, thought that he would never see this woman again. However, he was unfortunately very mistaken. He was quite mistaken. So anyways, eventually Alex and the little cousin get to the ride, front of the line. They're led on, and it's a fun ride, and they had a good time. So they get off, and the little cousin's like, or Alex is like, hey, can you just wait here? I'm going to go to the bathroom. Alex goes in the bathroom, washes his hands, does all this stuff. He comes out, his little cousin is gone. So immediately he just gets a pit in his stomach. He's like, oh my God. Like, he starts yelling out. He's like, Ben, where are you? We're going to say the little cousin's name is Ben. Ben, like, this isn't funny, man. You can't hide from me. I can't let this happen, right? Come on, come out now. And, he started to get really nervous because, understandably he's nervous. I mean, he was tasked with taking care of this kid, and all of a sudden this kid disappears. So he starts looking around, and he yells out like, Ben. And so he just starts walking out, and he's like, oh my God. And Alex gets a buzz on his phone. He checks it. It's his mom being like, hey, can you meet us at the whatever in 10 minutes? And he's like, oh no, not just the fact that I lost him, but now I got to be there in 10 minutes. And there's no way that I can tell my mom, oh yeah, by the way, I lost our cousin. Yeah, no, I just lost him. So at this point, Alex is walking around the fair trying to just figure out where his little cousin is. And that's when he gets a glimpse of someone that he thinks is his little cousin. So he immediately runs over, and it's just like a crowd of people, a huge flood of people are walking in his direction. That basically just means he's slowed down, he's struggling to get there, he's being pushed back and all this kind of stuff. But he definitely very clearly sees that it's his little cousin. So he's like, oh my God. And he sees his little cousin, and his little cousin is like being led by someone. And he's so confused, like, who's leading him? And he looks up. It's the Karen. The Karen has the little cousin's hand and is holding it and is kind of dragging him around. Remember, the little cousin's like 3 or 4. So for all we know, the Karen said, hey, I know your mom. Like, come with me. Which, first of all, bro, like, that's like the first thing my mom told me. She's like, look, white van or stranger, don't get in. They need help, like, finding their puppy. Like, don't get in, bro. Like, I'm sorry, they got candy. Don't get in, bro. I'm telling you, it's not worth it. Don't do it. So sure enough, right, Alex at this point is freaking out, which understandably I would be freaking out too. But at least now he knows where his little cousin is. So he starts like walking the direction of the Karen. And, the Karen is like, turns around and sees Alex and starts moving away faster. The Karen is basically trying to kidnap this kid, right? So Alex turns to a security guard and says, hey, like, my little cousin, his name is Ben. He looks like this. He pulls out a photo. He's with this woman who was like talking to me earlier. She basically has like, abducted him or whatever. So the security guard takes this very seriously and says, okay, thank you. And he goes into his walkie-talkie and says, hey, if you see a kid who is about like 4 feet tall, brown hair, wearing a Buzz Lightyear shirt, with a woman about 5'5", 600 pounds, I'm just kidding, with this like glasses, shorter haircut, and a pink shirt, please stop them at security. So, I mean, that's kind of the description. And that's when, like, Alex starts going out. He starts sprinting. He starts running really fast, and he just can't find them. And he's freaking out, right? He also gave the security guard his number so he could contact him. And his mom sends a text, and Alex looks at his phone. The text says, waiting, ... At this point, Alex realizes it has been 10 minutes. And remember, his mom said, I need you to be here in 10 minutes. So at this point, right, Alex needs to be there in 10 minutes, or it needs to be at this place. He doesn't have his little brother, or not his little brother, his little cousin, and his little cousin has been abducted by the Karen. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment Karen down below as the secret word of the day. I'm gonna heart as many comments as I possibly can that say Karen. And also, if you want to continue supporting the channel, the best way you can do it and help the channel grow and reach new people is literally just by watching more videos. So after this one, sit down and watch more of them. And please let me know in the comment section, what are you doing while watching these videos? Like, are you drawing or trying to go to sleep or playing a video game or cleaning your room? I don't really know. I'd love to hear it. I ask every time because I am genuinely interested. Also, as I said briefly in the beginning of the video, all of these videos are on Spotify, and even if you're not a huge Spotify user, I do put these videos up at least normally about an hour before they go up on here on Spotify. So if you want to get a taste of what the story is early, go to Spotify. If you are using Spotify, follow, turn on notifications, and please rate 5 stars. And if you want to submit these stories, these are all subscriber submitted stories, go to either my Twitter or Instagram. They're both at Connor Pugs. They're both in the description of this video. Follow me and then send me a DM. If I don't get to it right away, sometimes I use stories from I get submitted 4 months ago. I literally have used stories 4 months ago, right? So if I don't respond to it right away, don't take that the wrong way. And also sometimes I use your story and I don't even respond because I write it down. I just go straight to it. So always be checking in with the videos. With that being said, use code ConnorPugs for 10% off gamer subs, join our Discord server, and let's get back to the story. So sure enough, right, Alex is kind of racing around, and at this point, he's really freaked out. He's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is so bad. This is so bad. And that's when he gets a phone number or a call from a phone number that he doesn't recognize. He picks it up and it's kind of like, hello, and it's the security guard officer. And the security officer says, hey, can you come to Section B of the place? The security office is Section B. And he's pretty close to Section B, so he immediately rushes over and goes there. So Alex very quickly rushes over to the security office at Section B. He gets there, and the security officer has the Karen and his little brother kind of not held captive, but asked them to wait. And he's like, are these the two that you described? And he's like, yes. And the little brother runs over to Alex, gives him a big hug, and he's like, dude, little bro, you can't, or not little brother, cousin, sorry. He's like, little bro, you can't be going you can't just be going off with random people who ask. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know any better. So the security officer kind of turns to the Karen and is like, ma'am, can you explain this? And she's like, yes, I can. This little boy over here, and he points to Alex, was very rude to me. So rude. And he is a bad influence on his little cousin. So what I was going to do was I asked the little cousin to come with me, and I was going to teach him manners, respect, how to be a gentleman. But you guys decided to stop me in my tracks before I could do that. And the security officer's like, well, did you get permission from the parents or the guardians, right? And he kind of points to Alex. And Alex is like, no, I had no idea. I was searching for my little cousin for a while. And, the security guard's like, okay, well, what did you tell the little cousin to get him to come with you? And, the Karen was like, I told him I was going to teach him how to be a gentleman. And the little cousin's like, no, you said that you know my mom. And she's like, well, and the security guard's like, so, ma'am, you're telling me that you took this little boy, dragged him with you, and basically said that you knew his parents when you did. And the Karen's like, well, things might have happened. And the security guard's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I cannot allow you to ever come back to this place. If Alex chooses to, or the family chooses to file a report, we're going to have, with the police, we're going to have to go with it. And she's like, what? No, this is my favorite amusement park. You can't take that away from me. You can't take that. That's cruel. You can't take that away from me. I won't allow it. I won't allow it. You don't understand. And the security guard is like, all right, ma'am, come with me. And she's like, no. And she's being dragged out. So Alex calls his mom. His mom's like, Alex, where were you? We're so worried. And Alex is like, Mom, trust me, I have a good reason for it. Tell us where to meet you, and I'll explain everything when we get there. So, Alex's little brother, Alex's little cousin, I keep getting that messed up, walk over to, the place that they're meeting his mom, and then, the little cousin's mom is like, oh, where have you guys been? What is going on? And Alex is like, well, I have a good explanation. Here's what happened. So the subscriber we're going to call for the next Karen story is George. So anyways, right, George was working at the movies. So this was like George was a teenager. He was working on the weekends at the movies to make a little extra money. So George was working behind like the stalls. Like, I don't know if you've been to a movie theater, but if you have, you know that you can buy popcorn, you can buy candy, you can buy drinks and stuff like that. And that's actually where movie theaters really make their money. So George was like the person behind there, basically making the popcorn and ringing up the register when people would buy it. And earlier that day, a Karen and her family came in and got a lot of stuff, including some popcorn. And, she said, hey, can I have some extra butter on it? And George was like, all right, fine, that sounds cool. And he puts on the butter, he does a good job, hands over the popcorn. 2 hours later, 2 whole hours later, the Karen returns and she is not looking very happy. And the Karen walks up with an empty container, 2 empty containers of popcorn, right? And she walks on up and she's like, were you the young man who made my popcorn? And George already knows by, first of all, the tone of the Karen, the way she's walking up to him, all of this stuff. George already knows that, oh boy, this is not going to be good. So he's like, yes, I was. He's not going to lie to her, but he's not happily admitting it. And she's like, I want a refund. It was not buttery enough. And, normally when someone has a complaint about something like that, that's fine. But what George normally does is he just remakes the popcorn. He never really, I don't know. He doesn't, give a refund. And also, the situation here is a little bit different. Because the Karen came up with 2 completely empty boxes of popcorn. And, George kind of points it out. He's like, well, ma'am, it looks like maybe you didn't enjoy it the most, but you and your family enjoyed it enough to finish both boxes. And the Karen's like, that's irrelevant. We choked this popcorn down. It didn't have enough butter. And George is like, ma'am, I'm sorry. I can't really give refunds on that. Normally, if you came to me and you ate some of it and it wasn't to your liking, I would have no problem making you another thing of popcorn. However, I just can't, I can't issue you a refund because you ate all the popcorn, and then you're coming to me with an empty container, asking me to give you your money back because it wasn't good enough. That's just not really how it works here. I'm sorry. And the Karen is like, what do you mean you can't give me a refund? I think you're discriminating me against because I'm your elder. Karen's 40 or something. And George is like, ma'am, what? This makes no sense. She's like, you know what? If you don't give me a refund, you're getting a discrimination lawsuit because you hate me because I'm old. That's why you're not giving me a refund. And George was just like, ma'am, that's absurd. That's obviously not the case. And she's like, you're absurd, George. And he's like, oh my God. And he looks down. Yes, he has a name tag that says George. So that caught him off guard a little bit. But, he was like, I don't know what else. I'm sorry. I just can't give this to you. It was partially, the reason why George didn't give, the refund was partially because his own, morals / ideas of how the world works. You can't go into a movie theater movie theaters don't make a ton of money, especially nowadays. This happened a little while ago, but especially nowadays. And they only make money and a little bit of money on, the food that they sell. So asking that, George, refund the food after the person ate it all just doesn't make a lot of sense. Yes, if he actually mess it up and put, I don't know, paprika spice or, hot sauce in the popcorn instead of salt and butter, sure, full refund, whatever. But he just didn't add enough butter, and he did remember putting a lot of butter in it. So he was like, okay, ma'am, no. But also the other half is his manager has a very strict, you can't give refunds unless, something terribly goes wrong. And there's, a very few, situations where that's okay. So he's like, I don't know what else to say, but I can't give this to you. And the Karen's like, you know what? George, I want to hear from your manager. And the thing is, right, George's manager was kind of strict, was kind of an older guy. He definitely did not like being bothered by George. George, respected him enough to not bother him that much also. So George was kind of unhappy that he had to pull out his phone and call up his manager. His manager picks up, he's like, what? George is like, a customer wants to speak with you. And the manager's like, can you not deal with it yourself? And George is like, I'm trying to, but she demands that she speaks with you. And the Karen is sitting there all with a big smug look on her face. The Karen probably thinks that, after this, that she will 100%, most definitely, right? That she will most definitely get a refund, and the manager will come out on his knees like, I'm so sorry, ma'am. You're so right. I'm so wrong. I'm a big idiot, and you're the smartest person ever, ma'am. I'm sorry. So the Karen's waiting there all smugly, and that's when the manager comes out. And the Karen starts yelling at the manager. She says, your employee won't give me a refund on this popcorn. He didn't put enough butter. And the manager takes one look at the Karen and looks at the fact that she is holding 2 empty popcorn containers. She has 2 empty popcorn containers. The manager said, ma'am, did you eat all that? And she's like, yes. And we choked it down. I demand a refund. Manager's just like, no. And she's taken aback. She's like, you and your employer are saying no to me because you're discriminating against me because I am an elder. And the manager's like, how old are you? And she's like, that's a rude question. I'm 48. And the manager's like, I'm 52. I'm not discriminating against you because of your age. I'm saying no because you obviously are just trying to swindle us out of our money. Ma'am, movie theaters don't really make any money. And the only money that we make, the little bit that we scrape by, is from the food. Don't try and rob us because you're too lazy, you just don't try, basically, just don't try and rob us, ma'am. I know for a fact that you ate all that popcorn and thought it was fine. If you didn't like it, you wouldn't have finished it. And then you came back here demanding a refund. That's ridiculous. Please go along your way. And she's like, I'm going to tell everyone on Facebook that this is the worst movie theater ever. I'm never taking my family back here. I'm never going to do it again. And the manager's like, okay. Bet. Nice. Bye. She's like, I'm going to tell everyone on Facebook. I have so much power on Facebook. You don't even understand the amount of power I have on Facebook. I will crush you. I will crush your little tiny movie theater. You don't understand my power. And George was just standing there like, oh, well, I got a story to tell my mom if she asks me when I come back home. We're going to call the subscriber of the next story Will. So anyways, right, Will worked at an after-school gymnastics program where kids would be dropped off after school. They would learn all the whatever, right? And the end of the semester, I don't know what you'd even really call it. It was an after-school program. At the end of the program, let's say, there was kind of a little bit of a competition. The parents would be invited. They would be allowed to come, and they would give out prizes. They'd give out the gymnastics program award. We're just gonna say that the best, the most improved award, the whatever award, it's kind of like a whatever little fun award ceremony. Not everyone got an award, but it really was not that deep. That's what you gotta understand. This was a little fun after school program, and they gave out little dinky awards. And at the end of the day, it simply was not that deep, okay? It just was not that deep. But anyways, right, so, who was the... Will. Sorry, forgot who the name we were using. So anyways, right, Will worked at the place after school. It was a good, little after-school job. He himself was a gymnast, and he was going to college to be a gymnast. So doing this for his senior year was kind of fun, and he got a little money on the side as well. So he was teaching all the kids, and there was this one kid who we're going to call Ben. And Ben was a cool, he was fine. He was a cool kid. He did what he needed to do, but he just didn't win any of the awards because even before the show, they kind of just decided who was going to win the awards. At the end of the day, the show was just kind of to show off to the parents and to allow the parents to see a little bit of what their kids learned. And then right after is the award ceremony or whatever. And sure enough, right, one thing about the awards you got to know is it's normally they try and give out awards to kids when it's their first time showing up. So if kids have been coming to the camp for 7 years, they're probably not going to give them the award. The reason for this is the reason why they give out these awards is kind of an incentive, for kids to come back. Because a kid, it's their first year there, they have a fun time, and then they get an award. Mom, I want to come back to gymnastics camp. But if a kid's been coming for a while, they're like, we'll give it to someone new anyways. So sure enough, right, Will hands out this award. Or, no, sorry, I skipped ahead. So sure enough, right, the parents come in. Will greets them at the door. It's hello, everyone. Welcome to the gymnastics show. Hands out these little fake flyers or whatever. And all the parents, line up in the gym / or auditorium in a row of seats. And sure enough, one by one or in pairs, kids come out and they do whatever they're doing. Some kids are just doing handstands or I don't know, like very low skill acrobatics. I don't even know if I can do a handstand. Don't take that as offense, right? However, some others come out and they do something more advanced, and it's a whole range of things. Because, anyone's allowed to come to this camp. So kids who have no experience, kids who are really good, whole range. And they wanted to show off this whole range, right? So, sure enough, right, all the parents are clapping. Everyone's very happy. And then Will is up there with his other camp counselors doing the rest of the award ceremony. So they get up there and they're like, all right, so to the most improved goes to so-and-so, and everyone claps. The funniest guy or the funniest camper award goes to so-and-so. Everyone claps, right? The most improved goes to so-and-so. Everyone claps. The overall model camper award goes to so-and-so. Clap, clap, clap. And the gymnastics cup goes to so-and-so. Everyone's clapping, right? And the one thing you got to know is that Ben's name was not called. Ben didn't really care that much. He got it last year, so he thought that was cool. And he's like, okay, whatever. Someone else can get it. But you know who was very happy about Ben getting it last year? Ben's Karen mom. He really liked it. He really liked the fact that, he got an award last year. So you immediately see someone stand up in the auditorium, and it is Ben's mom, a.k.a. the Karen, and scream out, "Is that all the awards?" And Will was like, yep, that's... First of all, this is very weird. Like, parents don't normally scream out and, talk. But Will, who's thinking on his feet, is like, yep, that's all the awards for this year, folks. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming. You can also pick up a little your kids' journals, because every single day they do a little journaling or whatever. They're in the back of the auditorium. You can also come talk to us if you want any one-on-one coaching. Our coaches that are available are over. And you hear the Karen say, "Are you sure there's no more awards?" Will has just been interrupted twice. He's like, "Yes, ma'am, this is it for our programming. Once again, thank you guys so much for coming." And then you hear, "The awards have been rigged. The whole award show is rigged." And Will is just like, "What?" And everyone kind of turns around to look at this woman. And she starts stomping her, boom, 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 boom. She starts stomping her way up to the front. And everyone's like, oh my God. She gets up on stage. She goes up, and Will is so, shocked. He is so just, taken aback by everything that's happening that he basically willingly lets the Karen snatch the microphone out of his hand. She takes the microphone, and she's like, "Yeah, I want to let you know that the award ceremony is rigged. Last year, my son won the Model Camper Award, and this year I know for a fact that he was not just a model camper, he was the best model camper at this camp because he was twice as good as he was last year. And I want to let you know that whatever fraud went down will not be tolerated." And she turns out and she says, "I don't know who won the model camper this year. It was some kid. We'll call him Steve. But I know for a fact that his parents bribed you." And she turns around and points at Will. And Will grabs the microphone back and is like, "Ma'am, this is ridiculous. The awards are a little token that we give out at the end of the year. This is not some big crazy thing." And the Karen snatches the microphone back. It's like, "No, you don't understand. This is a really big deal, and you're just not appreciating how much I care about this. You don't understand anything. You don't understand." And she starts running off stage. Is like, "Oh, Ben, come with me. We're never coming back to this stupid camp ever again." Grabs him by the scruff of his neck. Remember, Ben doesn't care. He doesn't care if he wins the award or not. That is not what is important to him. And he's like, "Okay, Mom, whatever you want." And so at this point, what I call him, Will is kind of like, "Okay, everyone, well, that was kind of weird." And everyone kind of laughs a little bit. But just so you know, thank you so much for having your kids with us. I'm sure they had a great time. And the thing is, next year came around, and Ben showed up again. And Will, next year, because Will is now a counselor, first year in college, but he came back for the summer, so he did the summer program. And he's like, "Ben, I didn't think I'd see you here again." And he's like, "Yeah, well, my mom, it took me a while, but I used this as kind of my birthday present to be allowed back here. And my mom, not really wanting to get me a real birthday present, was fine with that." And Will's like, "Yeah, okay, well, I don't know if we can allow her back at the award show. And Ben's like, you know what? I was thinking about that. So I told her the award show was being held on Saturday. They hold it on the Friday, right? And she's just going to show up to an empty auditorium. So everything will be okay. Today I have probably one of the craziest stories I've ever received, and I think you guys will definitely enjoy it. So sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel if you like stories and are new, and let's call the subscriber who submitted the story Ben. Yes, the protagonist is Ben. This has never happened before on the channel, I don't think. So anyways, this all happened one day when Ben was, waiting to be picked up from school. So Ben lived close enough to school that he could walk back home. However, the walk home was like 15, 20 plus minutes. It was a bit of a walk, so it wasn't something that he necessarily wanted to do every single day. But his mom most days would drive him into school and then also drop him off and then also pick him up. However, there were occasionally days where his mom just couldn't do it for some reason, but Ben was able to, walk home from school. It wasn't that big of a deal. But anyways, right, this was one of those days where, Ben, waited outside with all of his friends, and all of his friends, they were being picked up, and, slowly and surely the numbers started to dwindle, and there was less and less people there, and then it was really only Ben and the teacher. And the teacher's like, all right, Ben, in 15 minutes, I'm going to have to go, I need to make sure that you're going home. You can't be staying here. Ben's like, okay, well, I think my mom just isn't here to pick me up today. Some days she just can't, so I'll just walk home. Teacher's like, you're okay walking home by yourself? Ben's like, yeah. What he didn't say, what could possibly go wrong? That'd be way too cliche, but that's basically the vibe that he gave off, right? So anyways, Ben starts walking home, and it's a very normal route. And all of a sudden, right, on the normal route that he's walking, there was a big thing of construction. And because of this, he had to kind of divert his path. And he had to go around. He kind of knew the neighborhood, but he didn't know it incredibly well. So he kind of had to make a guess, right? And he's like, okay, I think I know where I'm going. And Ben keeps walking and walking and walking. And Ben the more he walks, the less sure he is of where he is, which is a terrible feeling, right? You think you're going to walk out of the situation you get yourself in. You just keep walking and you're pretty sure that, I'll figure out where I am now. But every step Ben took, it just made him feel more and more lost, which was a terrible feeling. And that's when Ben started to not the sketchy part of town, but the more rundown part of town. The more part of town where it's a lot of broken glass in the buildings, a lot of abandoned buildings. There's kind of trash everywhere. It's the place where his mom's like, hey, you don't want to be here late at night, right? And his school got out a little bit later because it was an after school program where he got picked up from. So it was probably 5:15, 5:30-ish at this point. And while the sun wasn't going down, it was definitely feeling like it was getting later. So Ben was getting kind of creeped out. And the thing is, right, Ben was not old enough to have a phone, which is kind of in hindsight a really bad idea, especially nowadays. I totally understand not giving your kid a phone to become a zombified iPad baby on, but also communication is a great thing, and to deprive that from kids when something like this could happen, this is just a reason why maybe you might want to reconsider. So Ben is kind of walking around, and that's when he sees a car drive by him, and the car at the very end of the street. And okay, it's not just a car, man. It's a freaking van. It's one of those unmarked vans. This is not a white van. This is a black van. So it's not exactly the stereotype of unmarked white van is coming to rob you or abduct you or whatever. But it was an unmarked van. It was a dark van. The license plate was kind of wasn't there. So it was immediately super sketchy. And also all the windows were tinted. Very sketchy, right? And Ben is kind of freaked out when the van passes him. But, this is a car passing him, right? The thing that really got him was when the van stopped at the end of the street. And Ben just had some instinct inside of him that he needed to get out of there. So Ben immediately kind of runs behind one of the buildings. There was a bunch of big industrial broken down buildings. He ran in between them, and he kind of started to run down, and he kind of hid behind a trash can. And Ben's like, okay, I'm overreacting, but I just have an instinct that I need to do this. And Ben hears the car backing up, or the van backing up, and then literally stop right outside the alleyway. And he sees two guys get out, and they're all in kind of really baggy, black hoodies or whatever. They don't have ski masks on or anything, but they are incredibly sketchy. They have like sunglasses on, which is already a little sus, especially since it was cloudy out, it was getting dark, they were in a van with tinted windows already. They were just not like normal looking people, right? So they started looking around, and it was as if they were like looking for someone. And this is when Ben started to get really nervous, because this van seemed to like pass him and then stop, right, and turn back around to where he last was. And now these two people got out of the van and were like looking for something or someone. Ben just knew for a fact that like this was a very bad scene. So Ben like looks behind him, and he sees that they're like the alleyway isn't a dead end. So he starts to like sneak out, right? And he sees that there like it crosses over to like another pathway. And just as he's like walking out, he thinks he's in the clear, he accidentally bumps into a trash can. The trash can falls over, the inside spill out everywhere. And at that moment, the two people that walked out of the van started looking at him, like turned their heads and made eye contact. Ben immediately sprinted. And he was sprinting and he was running. He's like, I just got to run. Like, I got to run. He's like, I don't know if these people are after me or not, but it doesn't matter. I'm better off running and not knowing if I'm being chased than not running and have them gain like 50% ground on me. It's just better like that. So Ben is running and running and running. And that's when he decides to stop for a second after like 3 minutes of running and turn around. And that's when he sees very, very faintly, very, very far down, two figures slowly getting closer to him. And slowly because they were so far in the distance. But Ben could tell that these two men in their hoodies and sunglasses were running after him. And that's when Ben realized, it's time to go, buddy. It's time to go. So Ben immediately picks up, starts sprinting, gets out of there, and is like, I need to find like a way out of here. And it's like, it's downtown in this place. It is repeating buildings, industrial buildings broken down. Like, this is a freaking nightmare. He's running around, and then he sees like an entrance to one of these buildings. So he turns around briefly, and he doesn't see the guy, so he knows that they're not going to figure out that he's in there. And he quickly turns into one of these buildings, because Ben can't run forever. I mean, neither can them, but, they can get in a van. They can outrun him in a van easily, right? He's trying to recoup his stamina, maybe wait them out or whatever. So Ben goes into this abandoned building, and it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in an abandoned building, but the windows are either taped up, boarded up, or completely just smashed, and they're like gaping open. There's like wires hanging. It's dank and musty, and there's puddles, and it's not a good scene. So anyways, like Ben starts walking up these, running, or kind of like power walking up these concrete stairs, right? And he gets up to the second floor and has a pretty good like sight of like the windows or whatever, and he's able to look out. And that's when he sees a familiar black van pull up to like the building and stop outside of it. And Ben's heart just stops. He's like, no way they know I'm inside. Like, did they see me enter? Because Ben knew if they saw him enter, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Another thing you need to know, just for the future reference, while Ben didn't have a phone, Ben had his parents' phone number and their home phone number. He had them all memorized. That's just a little important detail for later on. Anyway, so Ben's on the second floor, and he's like, oh my God, like, I need to get out of here. Because he looks and he sees the doors open and two men enter the building. So Ben runs up another flight of stairs, and he goes up to the fourth floor, right? And at this point in the fourth floor, he's like, okay, like, this is really bad. Like, how do I get around this? So anyways, like, up the stairs, he's on the final floor, and then he sees that there's like a connection to a second building. Ben immediately starts hearing footsteps very far down, like running up the stairs. Ben immediately runs over to the next building. So now he's in the next building. And he's like, okay, I got to get down from here because I don't want to be stuck up here. And it's like an identical building. It's almost like twin buildings that are the same. They were probably like office buildings back in the day, but now they're abandoned and broken down and probably looking to be refurbished with the rest of this part of the city. And he runs down and he like goes to the final floor and he looks outside and, he sees the van idling, but he doesn't see anyone in it. So he runs out and he starts like running down the street. And that's when the worst thing possible he could hear. He hears the van's engine click on and starts to move. There was apparently a third person. Only two of them got out, but the third person was, I guess, still in the van operating it. Ben, at this point, freaks out. He runs down one of the alleys because the van can't follow him down one of the alleys. But at this point, it's practically a dead end, but there's a fence. And that's when he sees the van stopping. And then the door for the van opens up, and Ben is like, okay, I got to figure this out. He sees that, like, it's a dead end, but it's not just a dead end. It's like a fence. He starts climbing up the fence. He gets caught on it a little bit. The person starts running towards him. He hops over the fence, right? And he just starts running, right? He needs to figure out a way out of here. So at this point, he just keeps running. And this is like a freaking nightmare at this point. He's basically in the back rooms. But anyways, right, he keeps going. And that's when he makes it to like a convenience store. This is great for him because, like, it's really hard. Like, if you're going to be kidnapped, it's going to be in a abandoned parking lot, abandoned building. It's not going to be in a convenience store where everyone can see you. So he goes in there, right? And he rushes in there and he, like, looks at the person behind the counter and they're kind of looking back at him. And they almost have like a staring contest with each other. And Ben's like, I need help. And he's like, hello, son. Like, what do you need? He's like, look, you might not believe me, but there's these people chasing after me. I don't know if they're dangerous or whatever. I don't know why they want me. I think they just want to, like, kidnap me to extort me for some money or something, or put me in something terrible. I have no idea, but, like, I need to stay here. Is that fine? Can I use your phone? So the guy's like, yeah, sure. Do you want to also call the police? And he's like, yeah, actually, that's probably a good idea. So at first, Ben makes a police call. And remember, this kid's in high school, bro. Like, this is big, right? This kid's in high school. He calls up the police, explains everything that's going on. He says the location where he is. And so a police officer arrives there within 10 minutes. But before that, he calls up his parents and says, like, hey, like, I need you to come and get me. Like, I had a detour, I got lost, and then something really scary happened. So his mom said, I'll be there right away. Before the police gets there, before Ben's mom gets there, a very familiar black van pulls up to the convenience store. And Ben looks at, like, the guy behind the cash register and says, like that's the van. And the guy behind the cash register says, like, you know, come with me. And he basically brings him to a backroom closet, not backroom, but he brings him to a closet, says a broom closet with a bunch of chemicals and stuff. He said, stay in here, don't make a sound. So Ben goes in there, and that's when, like, you know, Ben's just sitting in the closet. He hears, like, the bell of the door opening, and he just hears, like, people walking around, just kind of, like, looking around at things. And that's when he hears someone stop outside the closet. And he's just like, oh, God, please, no. Real quick, comment, what should I have you guys comment Ben down below if you made it this far into the video. And if you want to support the channel, sit down and binge watch these videos. It really does help. And also, if you want to submit a story like this one and be featured on the channel, go submit it on my Instagram, Connor Pugs. And also, if you're not even going to submit a story, just follow me on there. I use the platform a bit more now. So, yeah. Anyways, Ben hears someone waiting outside of his, what am I trying to say? He hears someone waiting outside of the broom closet. And Ben is just, like, trying not to breathe, not trying to make any noise or whatever. And that's when he hears the footsteps walk away. So he's safe for the time being. And so anyways, right, that's when, you know, he gets this information from the person behind the cash register later, but he basically hears, like, 3 people quickly walk out of the building, or out of the convenience store. And he's kind of like, okay, like, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? And that's when he hears, like, a police officer enter, and he's like, hey, I got to report that something's going on here. And the guy behind the cash register says, hey, like, you're free to, like, Ben, or doesn't know his name, but says, hey, kid, like, you can come out now. So basically what happened was the 3 guys were looking around the convenience store, must have realized, either assumed that he went there or realized that, you know, Ben went there. And that's when they saw, like, one of them must have saw a police car pull up, and they all decided to quickly, like, exit the building, try not to be suspicious or anything. And so Ben exits. He says, hey, did you see 3 big people, like, just leave? And the police officer's like, 3 people did just leave as I got in. And that's when they all turn around and they see a black van kind of, like, start the engine and pull out. And the police officer runs out. He's like, hey, you, stop. And he goes to look to see what the license plate is, but there's no license plate, right? It's an illegal vehicle. So the police officer calls into his comm. He's like, hey, if you see a black van with no license plate, like, pull it over. They're suspects. We're trying to, like, kidnap this kid. Like, just put that out to everyone. So basically a message alert went to every police officer on duty within the state or within the district, whatever, to look out for that. They might have had, like, a license plate, a temp license plate that they had put on or something. But anyways, right, police officer's like, son, like, what happened here? And Ben explains everything. The police officer's like, wow, like, this is not the first report in this area. It's actually the third report we've had. And, who knows, like, the people who haven't been able to report for terrible reasons, you know what I mean? And, Ben's like, wow, like, that's really scary. I had no idea that was, like, a thing. And he's like, yeah, like, that's really, like, unsafe. Like, do you have your parents' number? He said, I already called them. And almost, like, in the second of Ben saying, I already called them, they hear another ding, and the door opens. It's Ben's mom. She runs in there. She's like, oh, my God, it's like a police officer. She's like, what happened? The police officer's like, well, like, I think your son was being tracked by a notorious, like, criminal group around here. He's safe now, but, like, please make sure to take him home and don't let him roam around in this area ever again by himself. So the police officer walks out. Ben's mom is just there. She's like, oh, my God, Ben, I had no idea. Like this is, like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is so terrible. Are you okay? And Ben's like, yeah, I'm a little shaken up, obviously, but yeah, I think I'll be okay. Can we just go home? So Ben gets in the car. Ben's mom's like, Ben, once again, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know how to make this up to you and stuff like that, yada, yada, right? Ben's like, you know what? It's okay. Just, like, I need a phone. She's like, yes, your dad and I have been thinking about getting you for your birthday, but we're gonna get it for you now because very obviously you need it. And she said, I'm never gonna let you, like, be picked up alone again. I don't even feel safe having you walk back. And Ben's like, well, Mom, I can walk back. I just took a detour and I got lost. And Ben's mom's like, Ben, please just tell me everything that happened. So Ben's like, all right. How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a good day. Today we got a pretty crazy story of this kid who almost gets kidnapped. It's a pretty intense experience, and I know you guys will enjoy it. So sit back, relax, subscribe if you're new, and let's just jump right into it. Real quick, all these episodes are on Spotify. It's the first link in the description. So if that's your preferred listening place, make sure to go there. They also go up there like 2 to 3 hours early. So either way, let's call the subscriber who submitted this story Zach. So anyways, Zach was pretty young at this point. He was probably like 10 or something. And Zach had an older brother who was 18, 19, like a pretty good difference in age, right? And Zach's mom couldn't be around to babysit Zach. So, Zach's mom went up to his older brother and was like, hey, I know, like, you're going out with your friend right now, but I need you to take Zach. Like, I can't babysit him, basically. And Zach's older brother was kind of putting up a bit of a fight. He wasn't, like, saying no, but he's like, Mom, like, come on, my younger brother is going to make it so difficult for me to have fun. Like, he's just going to mess things. I don't want him to get involved in anything I'm going to do. But Zach's, mother kind of put her foot down and said, no, like, you can use the car to go out and hang out with your friend on one condition, and that's that you bring Zach. Like, do this for me or else. So Zach's older brother was eventually like, all right, fine, whatever. And he goes over, he finds Zach, he's like, hey, man, like, you're coming with us. So Zach goes over, sits in the backseat of the car, and Zach's older brother drives around until he gets to the place where his friend is. His friend hops in the car, and his friend looks at Zach's older brother with kind of like a smile. He turns back and looks at Zach in the back seat, and he kind of turns back with kind of a look of like, what's this kid doing here? But then very quickly, like, puts a smile back on his face. He's like, hey, I didn't know you'd be joining us. And Zach's older brother kind of like piped up a little bit and said, yeah, sorry, like, my mom couldn't, look after him, so he has to kind of come around to wherever we're going. And, Zach's friend, or Zach's older brother's friend, kind of looked at him with a kind of a look because maybe they were going to do something that they didn't want their younger brother with them at. And basically, Zach's older brother kind of looked at him with a look of like, it's fine. Like, I'll deal with it. Don't worry about it. So they're driving along, and they're driving kind of towards this woods forest type area. It wasn't like in the middle of, like, I don't know, the middle of a massive forest or something, but it was definitely on the outskirts of whatever civilization, humanity type town or whatever they were in. So you'd see, like, a house or two every once in a while, but it started to be pretty woodsy, pretty foresty. And they pull into this parking spot, and Zach's older brother looks at his friend, and then, Zach's older brother looks back at Zach and says, hey, man, like, do you have something to entertain yourself with? And Zach looks around. He finds some kind of, like, Star Wars book or something. I don't really know. He finds something that he would find entertaining. And he's like, yeah, no, I can handle myself. And so Zach's older brother's like, hey, man, like, we're going to be gone for, like, 20 minutes. Can you just chill out here for a little bit? Like, can you just chill out here? Is that fine? And Zach was like, yeah, man, that's totally fine. It's whatever. And so Zach's older brother and his friend get up and they go. And whatever they were going off to do is who knows. I mean, you can probably guess or make guesses or whatever. It's a whole host of things that maybe just think of something. There's a whole host of things that you would do with your friend when you're older or groups of friends or whatever that you maybe didn't want your little brother there the whole time. There's a bunch of things. I didn't get specifically something. But the thing is, right, Zach, even though he was told to just stay put, it wasn't that he was a disobedient child. He just got bored, and he didn't really think of the consequences because, you get that, prefrontal cortex that hasn't fully developed, and especially by the time you're 10, you barely have your spatial awareness there. So, sure enough, Zach is sitting there. He's looking at this coloring book or Star Wars book or whatever he was looking at to keep himself entertained. And, he got bored. I mean, understandably, he got bored. After about 5 minutes, he went through the entire book because this book was sitting in the back of his car. He's looked at it several times. Like, this isn't some new, interesting book. He's seen it a billion times. So he kind of puts the book down. He looks out the window, looking to see if, his older brother's coming, but he sees no sign of them. And Zach's like, all right, well, I don't know. Like he said, I have to stay in the car. He didn't say anything about, I can't get out of the car as long as I stay near it, which, I mean, I'm sure Zach's older brother implied stay in the car, but whatever. Either way, Zach did enough mental gymnastics to convince himself that it'd be totally fine for him to get up and get out of the car. So sure enough, he gets up and he gets out of the car. He starts walking. And just for a bit of context, right, they were in kind of a wooded area, but there was a very long kind of driveway path, and there was also kind of it was cutting through a field, which if you walked far enough in the direction of the field, there was a forest on both sides. So there was multiple paths along these fields that you could go into the forest, but there was a main dirt path that was it was the road, right? It was kind of like the road that it wasn't paved, it wasn't looked after. It was definitely in the middle of nowhere type road. I don't know if you've seen one of those, but Zach is just kind of walking around, and he's just walking along the road, and he's not even really paying attention to how far he's walking away. I don't know about you, but especially when I was a little kid, there were plenty of times, and I mean plenty of times, that I would just be walking in my head, even now, honestly, and I just kind of pay attention. I kind of look up, and I notice that oh wow, I've been walking for 20 minutes in this direction. I had no idea I was doing this, and sure enough, right, Zach was just walking, and he probably didn't even realize this, but he kind of looked up and he realized that the car was no longer in sight while he was just walking a straight direction. So he definitely wasn't lost or anything. He realized that he's probably been walking for 5+ minutes. So he's like, okay, I should probably turn around. And that's when this car starts there's no traffic on this road. No one really drives along on this road. And that's when this car is kind of, it's not like a white unmarked van that says free candy on the side. It's not exactly like that, but it's kind of a more beat up, non-descriptive car with, it looks a little sketchy, but whatever, right? I mean, everyone has their first, whatever, you don't judge a book by its cover unless it says free candy on the side of the car, then go ahead and do it. And Zach just noticed this, and the car drives up next to him. And there's a lot of things wrong with this car. Zach realized as the car kind of drove away, which happens a little later, that it had no license plate, which that's a big red sign right there. There was tinted window. A lot was wrong with it. So the car pulls up, and Zach is just kind of walking along, and this driver slows down, which is the first weird thing, because if you're just driving by, it's whatever. Maybe you slow down a little bit just in case, I don't know, the kid or the person walking by makes any sudden moves, but most of the time you just don't think to do so. So the driver pulls up, and he kind of slows down. So Zach realizes that this driver is probably gonna try and talk to him. So Zach turns his head, and sure enough, the driver is is putting down the window in the car. And the driver's like, hey, buddy. And Zach immediately gets the chills. He's been told in school by this point, he's had it drilled into his head. If any stranger comes up to you and tries to talk to you, you're okay talking back, but you can't, if they say, come with me, or you should go this way, anything like that, just avoid it. You don't want to be kidnapped or something. He's been told a billion horror stories about kids being kidnapped and never being seen again. So sure enough, Zach is pretty freaked out by this. And the guy in the driver is really slows down his car almost to a stop. And he's like, hey, where are you going? Why are you walking along on this road all by yourself? Zach, who's, he's only 10, so he's not thinking of the perfect mastermind thing to say to get himself out of this. But he's kind of oh, I'm just going to see my brother. And the guy's like, oh, your brother, is your brother around right now? Is he close by? And Zach knew better than this, so he said, yes, my brother is close by. And the guy's like, oh, well, I mean, I don't see him anywhere. Do you know what direction he's in? And Zach points ahead of him because that's the direction of the car. And the guy's like, so do you want to lift there? Yeah, I mean, just hop in the back seat. I got you on this one. And Zach looks at him and says, it's okay. Like, I enjoy the walk, right? And, the guy's like, are you sure, man? Like, are you 100% sure? And, he's like, yeah, no, I'll be fine. So the guy's like, okay, that's fine. And he drives off. At this point, Zach is really starting to freak out a little bit. And the car has driven off at this point, but he just feels really weird. And he starts kind of like power walking back to the car. And at this point, he's like, okay, this was really strange. This was really weird. I have a bad feeling about this. About 3 minutes later, and he's power walking back to his car. And it turns out he actually had been walking away from his car for like 10 minutes, not 5. So he was much farther away than he thought. So what happens, right, is he's walking and he hears a car behind him. And he turns around and he sees the exact same car coming back, but this time much faster. So what, Zach just had an intuition to get off the road. So what happens was as I was saying earlier, there's the road bisects a field. And if you go far enough into the field, there's a woods. So it's like all surrounded by woods, but there's a field that bisects the road, or the road bisects the field. And there's many paths off the road into the field. And Zach just got a feeling that he needs to get on one of those paths. So these paths are not the roads. They're just paths that lead through the fields into the woods that the road goes in between. So Zach immediately gets on one of these paths and starts walking. And he turns around and he looks and he sees the guy who's like driving that car, park his car in the middle of the road and open it and start like not sprinting, right? He's not sprinting, but he is like quickly moving towards Zach at this point. Like he is power walking with emphasis. So Zach turns around, sees what's happening, and knows immediately like, okay, this is really bad. So Zach at this point starts running. And he just starts running and he doesn't even look back. He's just running and running and running. And that's when he gets to the woods. And that's when Zach, catches his foot on a root, because I don't know if you've been in the woods before, but there's a lot of like tree branches, bushes, and also exposed tree roots. And some of them, like the only part like is like it's poking out, you don't really see it. And sure enough, Zach caught his foot on this and he fell over. So he fell over, he quickly got up, but while he was getting up, he did look behind him, and the guy in the vehicle was quickly approaching, and he was no longer power walking, he was sprinting towards him. Real quick, if you made this far into the video, comment Zach down below. Sorry, I can't think of anything that interesting to say. I'll try and heart a bunch of comments to say that. Also, please let me know what you're doing while watching these videos. The best way you can support the channel is by sitting down and watching multiple videos. If you want to submit stories to me, do so on either my Instagram or Twitter. They're both in the description. Go to the Spotify playlist if you haven't, or the Spotify podcast if you haven't already. Please rate it 5 stars, by the way. That's a little feature on there. It says rate, and then you can choose how many stars. I mean, it'd be cool if you give it 5. That'd be pretty nice. And with that being said, let's get right back to the video. So sure enough, Zach just starts sprinting. And before, like, he was running, at this point, like, survival instincts have kicked in at this point. He is full-on sprinting. This guy is out of here. He's like, no, I can't be doing this, man. Like, no shot am I being kidnapped today. No way. And the other thing was, Zach knew that he was kind of close to the car. Like, he knew that, like, if he could get back on the main road, if he could leave this guy, like, into the woods and get back onto the main road, that, like, I don't know, like, maybe he would at least, or he needs to at least follow the woods, like, parallel to the main road, and then at some point get off of it and, try and get into the car, try and see where, his older brother is. Remember, he's too young at this point to have a phone. And also, this was a little while ago, so, like, phones weren't so common that, like, everyone, including little, like, I don't know, 4-year-olds had them. And anyways, he's in the woods and he's running. And it's hard because there's no real pre-made path in the woods. And I guess the one advantage, or one of the advantages Zach had, was he was, like, 10. He was short. He was small. And because he was short and small, he was, he was actually very agile, very mobile, and he was able to kind of weave his way through all the brush and random stuff in the forest much better than the guy chasing him. The guy chasing him, who was I don't know, a bigger, like, guy who's probably in his 40s or whatever, and because of that, he was being, he couldn't just run through all the brush. He can't run through a tree, and he was kind of getting caught up and stuck or whatever, and it got to a point where Zach turned behind him, and he didn't even see the guy anymore. He knew he was coming because he could kind of hear noises of rustling or whatever, but you couldn't even see him because he got that far back. So Zach eventually decides that this is a good time to break out of the trail. He breaks out of the woods, starts running into the field, isn't even on a path in the field. He's just going through the tall grass at this point, running and running and running until he hits the road. At this point, he's hit the road, and he starts looking in both directions, and he can see very, very far in the left or straight ahead of him at this point. He sees an outline of a car, and he recognizes the color. It's like this maroon color, and that is the color of his older brother's car. And he also sees two figures outside the car kind of pacing around. And yes, they could have been more kidnappers or whatever, but most likely they were Zach's older brother and his friend, probably freaking out because Zach was nowhere to be seen. So Zach is like racing up towards them. Zach is like sprinting, and he's like yelling, and he sees the other two figures. Like one like turns around, he hears his name being yelled, which at this point he's like 100% sure it's his brother, because this random kidnapper, unless he's been stalking him for like 2 years, definitely doesn't know his name. So Zach, as he gets closer, he sees it is his older brother and his friend. He goes up there, he's like, oh my God, like I can't, like there's someone after me. And like Zach's older brother's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And, Zach goes on to explain that, like, yeah, like, this guy came up to me, said, like, he could drive me to you, but I said no. He disappeared for a little bit, but now, I don't know, he's been chasing me. Like, he got out of his car, he's chasing me in the woods, and they're still, like, the guy's in the woods right now. I don't know what's really happening. And Zach's older brother's like, all right, man, let's get in the car, let's get back home. Like, we'll sort through this all when we get back home, but right now, like, let's just get back to safety. So they start walking up to the car, and, Zach is about to get in when they look down the road and they see another car coming up to them. And Zach immediately yells at his brother, that's the car. So they quickly hop into Zach gets in the back seat, Zach's brother gets in the driver's seat, and his friend gets in the other seat. They get in the car, and they immediately drive out of there. The thing is, though, like, the car that, like, was chasing Zach before was far enough away, because this road was it was a very flat terrain, so you could see far ahead of you could see the horizon pretty far away. So by the time Zach's older brother and his friend got into the car and they started to move, they had a good amount of distance on the other car. Obviously, if they just stayed put, the car would have caught up with them, and who knows what have ever happened. But Zach was in the back seat, looking at the car behind them, basically telling them, all right, is the car speeding up? Is it getting closer? And sure enough, for at least a little bit, like in the very beginning, the car was like going 80 miles per hour, and he was like speeding up towards the car that Zach had. And, he's telling his older brother, like, you got to go faster, you got to go faster. His older brother's like, man, I don't know, like, this is way over the speed limit. And Zach's like, look behind you. So he looks in his mirror, and sure enough, the car is getting closer and closer. And he's like, dude, this guy's a maniac. So Zach's older brother's like, all right, screw it. He steps on the brake, or not the brake, steps on the gas. They start driving faster, and eventually they get more and more into civilization until they hit a highway, which is exactly, get in the highway, they go on, and they've lost this guy. There's no way that this guy follows them on the highway. I was about to say, or so they think, but no. They get back home, the guy's not following them. Zach's older brother sits Zach down, is like, dude, what happened? Like, what happened today? Zach, like, catches his breath because he's, like, freaking out. He's like, all right, I'll tell you
everything. Click on the video
time.
on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it, do it.